Hang on, I've got to accept that. There we are.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the author interview of Geoff Burch, who was the Business Bookcase Author of the Month with The Way of the Dog for May. So this is us catching up a little and sharing information and insights from Geoff about the book and about himself and what he does these days. So Geoff, welcome and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, great.
It would be great to share your insights with both the audience for Business Bookcase and also your own audience and people who've read the book, which I have to say was a bit different to the usual book that we use on the Business Bookcase.
I think it kind of shocked my editor a bit as well. A little out of the ordinary.
So starting there then, I wonder if you could give us a couple of minutes on your career journey and what brought you into writing books and wanting to share your message, and then specifically what prompted you to write this book in particular.
I'm sorry about that. Things are jinging in the background, but it'll stop in a minute, I hope. Anyway, yeah, it was all a great big huge monster accident. I had an idiot friend who was wonderful. He was absolutely a Jonah. I remember he walked past my tumble dryer one day and it exploded. That's the sort of person he was. He radiated trouble. And in many years ago, many years ago, there were these big sales gurus who could fill the Albert Hall and all sorts of things. And I don't know what I was doing, some sort of management consultancy business after having sold my businesses. And I was just jogging along. And this lunatic said to me, "You could do that, Geoff. You could fill the Albert Hall with people and we'll become rich." And and then he ambled off into the night. And what I didn't know is he booked a theatre. He just went off and booked a theatre, invested his savings in it.
Oh wow!
And of course, nobody bought any tickets like you'd expect. And he said, "What you need is publicity, you see." And so he wrote to the BBC and said, "This bloke's a genius. You've got to get him on. You must get him on." And they told him where to stick his idea. And then this chat show, midweek chat show on the BBC, they'd had the Aga Khan or somebody supposed to be on it, who'd got run over by a bus and they hadn't got a guest.
Oh.
And one of the researchers said, "Oh, we got this weird bloke been writing in." I said, "Well, get him, moment's notice." And I ended up on this midweek program talking absolute nonsense about business. And after the show, this bloke rang up and said, "Has he ever written a book? Does he want to write a book?" And they passed his phone number to me. My wife is my boss. And we all said, "Well, this is one of these tricky self-publishing. They'll suck all your savings out of you." So we just tucked the address in the back pocket and forgot about it. And then I was in London and we'd had a fairly depressing day. And my wife said, "Of course, this publisher's supposed to be along here." And we were a bit skint. We had an old 2CV with rust holes in it. And I said, "Well, Euston, somewhere in Euston Road, this dodgy publisher, sort of Megler Corpse Publishing or something." She said, "You'll go and see him." I said, "Nah, they'll just rip us off." But anyway, we couldn't find this mysterious office near Euston Station anyway. And we went into this great big glittering tower block to ask if anybody knew where this address was, because the numbers were weird. And the woman said, "Well, this is Mega Blitz Publishing Towers." And I said, "Well, you ever heard of this bloke, Fred Watkins?" She said, "Yeah, he's our chief editor." So we went we were whisked to the 41st floor where this bloke said, "We'd like you to write a book." And I said, And he said, "Well, what's holding you back?" And I said, "Well," he says, "Is it money?" And I said, "Well, yeah, to be fair, because my wife had said, look, we got a little bit of savings. If you'd love to write this book, we'll spend our savings and get it published. And I thought, well, I don't know how much this is going to cost, and I don't really want to spend my savings. And he said, well, and he just got out a checkbook. There's no such thing anymore. Got out a checkbook and wrote a check that was so huge that I could have lived for a year and pay off my mortgage with it.
Oh, wow.
He said, here, will that persuade you? And I went, yeah. And we drove out of London with this massive check in our pocket. And my wife said, but you can't write. You're an idiot. You're a dyslexic idiot as well. So a year went by and we'd spent their money, and they sort of basically threatened to send the boys round. So my wife locked me in a room with sort of piles of colored paper and crayons, sort of tear stained. And I wrote Resistance is Useless, which was a massive big seller. I don't know why. They sold it to Japan and they sold it everywhere, you know, and as they say, that the rest is history. So off we went, being a famous business guru and writer of business books. So there you go. That's how the first book got published, and I think there's 6 altogether now. And The Way of the Dog is the weirdest one.
But your favorite, I understand.
Oh yeah, because it's what I discovered was that actually the business I'd been running was sales training, you know. So what I would be done, I had an assistant, somebody who helped me, and we would be wheeled into a room with a horseshoe table with 20 or 30 employees of X company, and I would talk at them for 2 days, you know, exhaustingly. And we'd run through this, and we'd do little tests and role plays and the whole kind of bit. And after that, the sales of the company would shoot through the roof, you see. And they say, well, there you go, that was worth doing. And we'd do more and more and more. And I was always quite busy doing it. But then I was being asked to speak at conferences for just 30 or 40 minutes. And I realized that I was having the same effect that 2 days was having.
Interesting.
You know, yeah, when I'd interviewed these people, I'd say, well, what do you remember? And they say, oh, I remember that thing of when a customer says they haven't got enough money, you said that. Oh, and I remember that thing of always anticipating what the customer wanted now. And I remember this, and they would tell me probably in 30 seconds what I'd spent 2 days telling them. And I realized that actually these little key simple points were all that were needed. And that all the kind of psychology of selling and all all this bits and pieces was just fluff that packed it out. And I'd had from the very start used this example of a sheepdog, you know, this simple-minded thing that takes the sheep on this journey. Despite the obstacles, it always gets to the end. And I used that analogy to create the book.
Well, my next question was actually going to be why a dog, but you've just kind of explained that.
Well, my dad was a mad old Viennese psychiatrist who fled from the Nazis and hated all of mankind, you know, and he had very little respect for his patients. But he used to say, you can persuade anybody to do anything. And he uses the examples of the Nazis, the way that they gripped people's minds and could change them. And he said that he was in Vienna and Goebbels was making a speech about basically the final selection sort of thing, the final solution. And a Jewish friend of my dad's turned to him and said, you know, Rosie, I think he's right. And my dad just said, it was that night that I packed all my stuff and left, you know, because he realized what a grip the sort of manipulation of people's minds had. And he believed that, as I say, anybody could be persuaded to do anything. And he had certain favorite people that he'd modeled his work on, Freud being one, but the other was Pavlov and this Pavlov's dog. And Pavlov said that a dog has 2 states of mind, which is happy and waiting to be happy, you know.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And in a similar way, people ask, why they're not rich, and have I got the secret of being rich? And if I've got the secret of being rich, why aren't I rich? And I always use the example, another animal example of the shark. A shark has a brain the size of a walnut.
Mm.
And yet, in political discourse, you defeat a shark every time. In discussing, the writings of Pliny, you would defeat the shark. But it's swimming and eating, you wouldn't.
Yes.
And the point with it is that I've worked with billionaires, and they're not always, well, they're often not very intelligent people, but they have this. I remember being on the Norfolk Broads with one of these people, and he was a house builder, a massive house builder. Yeah, and anyway, the water is this beautiful chromium grey. It's dawn, and the water is still in chromium grey, and you could see the reflection of the birds flying over it, and in the distance you could hear the of the coots and the little splosh of the fish jumping. And I said, God, look at that. I said, when you look at that, what do you think of? And he said, 7, 8 bungalows to the acre.
Yeah, you paint a great picture. I was thinking about something else entirely.
Yes, you show him nature and he wants to build on it. And of course, normal human beings want to do other things. That these people find this simple way of making money, and they don't get bored with making money. They just go on and on and on, like the shark never gets bored with eating. And it's the same with this dog herding the sheep. The dog hasn't got PTSD. He hasn't got marriage problems. He just knows what the task in hand is, and gets on with it and deals with obstacles as he encounters them. And that's the kind of thing of, all of the people, or a lot of the people watching this are small business owners.
Yeah.
They know what they'd like. They know where they'd like to get to. So a lot of us have got our destination in mind, not clearly set, but kind of. But they don't really know where they are now, and they don't know where the obstacles are between where they are now and where they'd absolutely like to be. And the dog does know that. In the book, the good dog, the hero dog, not the hero of the story, but the sort of mentor dog, Shep. He sits on the grassy knoll and he sees where the sheep are. He sees where the sheep need to be, and he sees the obstacles. And he also has a fairly good estimation, but he's not a genius. He never professed to be. And it was that simplicity of taking the route to success to its simplest level. You don't have to be on a 2-day course or a 3-day degree. You just need to spot those obstacles and be able to deal with them. That's the kind of thinking behind the book.
It was quite interesting reading the book. The use of Shep as a mentor, and as you say, the simplicity of him sitting a little bit away. He can see the forest for the trees. He knows, as you say, where the sheep are, where they've got to get to, and what's in between. And he shares that with the hero of the story. And I think quite often when we're in the middle of tackling complex issues at work, whether it's sales process or any other kind of process, that's what we're missing, that stepping back and seeing the big picture.
I live my life on jokes, not because I'm particularly funny, but because they get to the bottom of what we think. My dad, actually, he would analyze people in a second by finding out what their favorite fairy story was. That's another story. But my favorite joke on that is, when you're up to your arse in alligators, it's very hard to remember that you'd set out to drain a swamp.
Absolutely.
We often are surrounded by these alligators, and what you need is someone on the bank saying, watch out, there's one coming up behind you. And it's, you know, someone who is not afraid of the alligators because they're not in the water with you.
Mm.
That's I did a TV series about saving small businesses, and it was miraculous. We did the most wonderful job for these people, and I had to decide whether it was because I was a genius or was there something else going on there that, you know. And what had happened was, I'd got this little Welsh woman who was my director, and she was like the witch out of Chilton and the Wheelies. Yeah,
Right.
great big fat idiot, you know. Anyway, we went into this. The first business was a shop where this dear lady came out, and she said, "Hello, this is my shop." And I said, "That's very nice." And anyway, I was grabbed by the ear by the little Welshman, hauled out to the street. "Very nice, very nice. You great fat idiot. Very nice. You're supposed to, this is TV. People don't want to watch people saying things very nice. They want to see people having their heart broken. Tell her she's crap. Tell her she's rubbish. Make her cry. Make her cry. Get back in there." And I was sent back in. "What do you think of my shop?" I said, "Well, it's a bit crap." Of course they do. "Why?" And I said, "Well," I said, "it says on the blind outside Beryl's." "Yeah, that's my name." "But Beryl's what?" "It's a flower shop." "But it doesn't say flower shop outside, does it?" "No." "Okay. And there's no flowers?" "No, I know." "Why not?" "Well, because it's cold, and if you put the flowers out and they die, and I can't afford to buy any more flower, so I put them all in the back." "So there's no flowers to be seen, and it doesn't say flower shop?" "No." "Okay." And then we did this kind of 2 weeks later. We go back, and we paid for this thing to say it says Beryl's Flower Shop, and there's a barrow. We'd got a barrow and put it outside filled with flowers. She was doing £2,000 a day.
Wow.
And what it was not me being a genius. It was about having that person on the bank, having that person set back from the mess you're in, saying, "Look, don't get distracted by this or that. I can see your core problem. And I know you would if you were on the bank with me. But let me tell you, because we're never honest.
Mm.
You know, you see a friend with a baby, their new baby, and it's so ugly that it would stop a clock. You never say to them, "God, what an ugly child." You'd say, "Oh, he's a little bruiser. He'll make a rugby player one day," or something stupid, you know.
Mm.
And these all the people that are on LinkedIn who follow me and stuff, that their businesses are their babies.
Yeah.
You know, it's the thing they've dreamt about every night. They've wanted to jack in that job at the boot factory. They've always wanted to open an olive oil shop or whatever it is. And nobody has had the heart to say that's the stupidest idea I've ever said. Wigan does not need a rustic olive oil shop, you know.
Mm.
Don't do it, you know. But this is an idea you could try. Do it this way, watch it that way. So honesty has got a lot to do with it. And again, in the way of the dog, the guy in the story, Lucky, as he uses his dog name, he is kind of self-deluding at the start of the book when he meets the Wicked Witch. Yes,
Mm.
folks, it's that sort of book. He meets the Wicked Witch. He's kidding himself that somehow all his problems are other people's fault, not his, you know.
Mm.
And through the book and through the fights he had with other dogs and his encounter with the farting cat and all the bits and pieces, he starts to realize that he is the master of his own destiny, but he has to cut away the stuff that's leading him astray to get on with the job in hand, is the thing, really.
Mm. And actually, that I loved the farting cat, and that's a good illustration of a being who is just totally focused on, you know, he's a hunter,
Yeah,
he hunts,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
when he's successful, he rests and farts, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Because he goes and messes with the farting cat. That's the trouble. He's told not to, because this thing
Yeah.
looks like a pajama case. It's soft. It has got no bones in its body at all. It's just soaking up the sun rays and letting the warmth work on its digestive system. So it passes this gentle wafting cloud of effluence. And he thinks he can attack it. But the minute he does, of course, the thing is a mass of razor sharp claws and muscles. But again, you know, it is this same that comes from a thing, again, from my training courses that I used to go on about a lot, but it's called active listening. So there was this big thing about shut up and sell. Keep your mouth shut. You know, shut up and sell. That's what you've got to do. You ask that you shut up and sell. And then I realized that if you went into sort of your average high street shop, they did shut up and they weren't selling. But it's because they were somewhere else. They were scratching their bottom. They were drifting off somewhere. They weren't engaged. So there's two sorts of being shut up. There's a shut up where you're, okay. So where would, oh, I see. Yeah. That's the sort of shut up that pulls your people engaging with you. And there's a shut up where you're just vacant, you know. Which is a different thing altogether. So it's got these little business messages in it, but it's just woven into this pretty short kind of weird story.
And if there was one message that you wanted people to take away from this book, what would it be? Because there are lots of messages in it, actually. There's leadership and teamwork and the mentoring and the big picture.
I've done one of a little story to share with you. I'm going to disappear in a second, reappear, because I need to show you something. But the book was a huge success in Russia. And I could not know why. And then they sent me the Russian copy, and the sheep are kind of wearing suspender belts, and the dog is wearing a smoking jacket and has got a whip. And I thought, what sort of book do they think it is? What messages? Hang on, I'll get it.
Oh my word.
So when you say what messages do you want the book to take away? Well, if you're Russian, they're probably not the messages I was imagining at all. But to the English-speaking reader, I think it is that you can simplify this journey. To businesses who want their staff to sell more, don't spend a fortnight driving people nuts with thousands of words. Sort of 40 or 50 minutes of those simple steps, just asking people to make simple steps. It's more simple than you think. But I suppose the other thing is that we allow the distractions, the alligators, to lead us away from what we're doing. So the book's simple message is success is a lot easier than you think it is, really. If an idiot like me can be relatively successful, then anyone can.
And do you think we, as human beings, generally overcomplicate things?
Oh, enormously. Absolutely enormous. Well, some things should be overcomplicated, and simple things shouldn't be. I mean, we have complication in our life. We have things, but I've got this thing. I wrote a book called Go It, of two self-employment books, one called Go It Alone and one called Self-Made Me. And I have an apocryphal story. I used to have these groups of people at a local technical colleges, which were on a business startup, government-funded business startup thing, and the weirdest people I met. But I always have this kind of slightly apocryphal story that I saw one of these people that had been on my course, a woman. And about 18 months after she'd heard my tips on being self-employed, she swept past me in a white convertible Rolls Royce. And she's got these Chippendale dancers that are rubbing scented oil into her willing flesh, and she's throwing bundles of £10 notes into the air, you see. So I couldn't help talking to her. So I said, so self-employment's going all right then? She said, yeah. I said, I suppose you should do it for this car. And she said, no, really, car's a nuisance. It's just a great big thing. It's a car. When it's a car, it's a car. The novelty's worn off a bit. I said, what about it's those Chippendales? And she said, yeah, they're a nuisance too, really, to be honest. They eat a lot. I said, well, I said, it's the money. She said, no, she said, I got more money than I could spend. And she threw sort of bundles of tenors into the air. So I said, so why are you self-employed? She said, job security. I said, what? She said, job security. No. She said, look. She said, I was a senior manager in a fizzy pop factory. The bloke who shared the office with me was the laziest git in the world and used to sit and do his crossword puzzle all day, never did any work. So half of my money went to subsidize that idiot. She said, we were part of an international fizzy pop company. They had 1,000 factories around the world. They decided they needed to cut 10% of production back. So it didn't fall that our factory got shut. So despite my effort, my work, my everything else, I lost my job. She said, now I'm self-employed. Do you think I'm ever going to fire myself? She said, no, I'll never be unemployed again. You know, she said they had a 10% drop in business. Last year I made £200,000. She said, if I have a 10% drop in business, I'm going to have to struggle by on £180,000. You know, she said, poor me. you know, when you're self-employed, it ebbs and flows. I said, you're self-employed, you're never unemployed, skint possibly, but never unemployed again. And a great deal of self-employed people, or people who are forced to be self-employed because their job went west or whatever it is, have this feeling that somewhere inside they ought to get a proper job. And I think one of the keys to all of this is to play it like a game with rules. It's like Monopoly or chess or anything else. It's called making money. And you just follow the simple steps. It's more snakes and ladders, actually. You know, it's not as difficult as chess. You know, you've just got to roll the right numbers and you just got to keep going. And the odd snake, but you just keep going because you're going to bump into the odd ladder as well. But you will get to the end. You just got to follow the rules, not do anything stupid and not swallow the counter.
Yes. And actually, people who spend their life in corporate world, like myself, who might have an idea for becoming self-employed, what tends to stop them is that thought of all that risk and, you know, oh my goodness, it's not job security. No. It's nice to hear it put a different way.
No. But of course, you see, whoever employs you, they're the ones that like to give you the job. I mean, if you were to get the job, and again, you know, with self-employment, the thing that in the modern world, in this world of the internet and the modern thinking, these ideas of having side hustles is nice because you can actually, you know, end up suddenly you look at your bank balance and think, my job paid me 1/10 of what my side hustle pays me. What am I doing still at work? You know, and that's the moment, isn't it? When the thing swings the other way. So
yes.
I mean, roll on side hustles is
absolutely. So Geoff, just conscious of time, we've sadly run out of time. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, either to talk more about books or to you know, take up your services, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
The website leads you to me. I mean, if you go to geoffburch.com, but everybody spells it wrong, and there's a bloke that collects steam engines with the same name, which is a bit odd, but it's GeoffBurch.com, Geoff@geoffburch.com. Then there I am. So, and I'm always happy to chat with anybody who wants any information.
Marvelous. Thank you for your time. That time really whizzed by. That was a great conversation. Thank you very much, Geoff. Hope people enjoy it too. Cheers. And I will probably come back to you at some point. to use one of your other books as a book of the month.
Okay, well, very welcome to.
Thank you very much.